Welcome to V is for Victory, a podcast about how small businesses overcome big battles. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a boutique marketing firm in the Chicagoland area where I'm also a part-time professor of an advertising course. Join me as I talk with entrepreneurs about the challenges they faced as well as their strategies for success. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 21 of V is for Victory. I am joined once again by Sheila Petersen of LoveChange, backed by popular demand.
Oh, Jill, thank you so much for having me back. I'm glad to be here today.
Awesome, thanks. So Sheila, it's been about a year since we launched the podcast and you were our very first guest. So tell us what you've been up to in the past year in terms of your business and just where you're at with things.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's been a year, first of all. What a wild ride it's been. Yes, lots has changed, but I think the first thing that comes to top of mind when you ask me that is, just gratitude. I feel a lot of gratitude for this last year. It's been, of course, challenging for all of us, but I really feel that it's allowed me to take the space and time, kind of minimize the distractions, really hone in on, you get even clearer, have more clarity on where it is that I'm going and what is it that is mine to do. And I think in that has come a lot of self-belief and a lot of self-trust. And where in the historically reflecting on that had been lacking, frankly. And so I'm really grateful that, my business has picked up tremendously. I've done a lot more meditation and journaling and manifesting around what it is that I really want to bring into my life. So it's been a real journey of doing a lot of the inner work and the deeper shadow work, if you will, to really get clear. Because I found the only way is to move through it. And so I'm really grateful to say that I'm talking to more women and men and really helping them do their deeper inner work as well, specific to emotions, right? Like none of us got all the tools growing up, and emotions is really where a lot of the things get unlocked, if you will, right? There's a lot of information in our emotions, and we're not taught about that, right? We're taught to not express them, not talk about them, just show up and smile, be a good girl, Right. And so that's been a really beautiful unfolding. And I will say a lot of people I've worked with have said, Sheila, I didn't know that I needed to do this work, or Sheila, I didn't even know this was available to me. Or I've tried that manifesting and meditation and journaling before. It just didn't work for me. It's like, well, okay. Then I get curious, right? Because it's like, well, why not? Like, what did you try? What didn't work for you? I get curious, right? Just tell me more. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like it's not here yet, so you're sort of living in this space in between, right? Like it's coming, but it's not here yet, but you can visualize it. And so there can be some discomfort there because it's, we're in this quick fix society, right? We want everything like yesterday, that instant gratification. So it's a little tricky when it comes to visualization and manifesting, but there's been a lot of clients who were skeptical at first, and then now they're putting it into practice and they just are mind blown.
Nice. I love that. Let's back up a little bit. I picked up on something that I want to kind of pick your brain about. In terms of minimizing distractions, I think as entrepreneurs or people who are starting a business, it can be really easy to get distracted by big shiny objects or small shiny objects or what somebody else is doing or, only the things that you're comfortable with. So I have a client who's not at all comfortable with networking, and we really, really need to up her networking game. But she's just very, very shy. And so, it'd be very easy to distract her with all these other things, but I know that this is an area that's really going to propel her business. So in terms of tips and tools for minimizing distraction, what you got?
That's a great question. Yes, I am completely guilty on that one. I love shiny objects, and I love doing all of the things, right? Perfectionism, people-pleasing gets all wrapped up in that. But what I found is that I was doing a lot of learning but not earning. And I was trying to be all things to all people, right? Like I wasn't clear on who I was serving. And so I remember a time where I was on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest, and I had a blog, and I was going to 5 networking events a week, and I was redoing my website for the 10th time. And, I was doing all of these things, yet it was leaving me depleted and distracted, and at the end of the day, it wasn't converting to paid clients. So what I realized just sort of doing this decade reflection of being in business for myself is that I didn't need any more certifications, right? Yeah. What I needed was a system. I needed a system that was going to be sort of my daily method of operation every single day without fail, without procrastination, and with commitment and dedication and determination is like, look, I'm out of money, right? And so I have no other choice but to do these things and stay uber focused. So I think with that comes some sort of pain, right? Like if you're not in the pain, right, of being at a business for 10 years and seeing that cash flow dwindle, you might just stay in your comfort zone, right? You might just be trying to do all these things that you've been told, you sign up for this program and do it this way and it'll work for you. Well, what happens when you've signed up for 10 different programs and at the end of the day, now you've got PTSD because you've done all those things before, right? And they didn't work. Right. And so what I realized this year, another thing I'm grateful for is that I connected with a woman who flipped my narrative and taught me how to get clear on my niche, get clear on, who I'm serving, where they're hanging out, the marketing piece and the advertising piece, right? And just getting really, it was like I tried everything else, right? But I still hadn't tried this one thing. And I think that's where the thing comes in is our mind is we give up, right? We get overwhelmed because we're trying to do all the things, and we still need to be open and coachable to trying that other thing that maybe we haven't tried before. And so that was really sort of the when things started to align for me, and I started letting go. I also set timers for myself. So every hour I would put timers in my phone because just like you and I both know, you get on Facebook, you're going to go do this thing, and then you get sidetracked and you're down the rabbit hole in 5 different groups, and you're like, wait, you get off Facebook and close your computer, and you're like, wait, I didn't even do the task that I set out to do here. So those timers have been really, really helpful to keep me on point and to check in with myself and say, Sheila, are you getting closer to your goal with the tasks that you're working on right now or further away? And then I shift.
I love that check-in and the language around that check-in because it's just so it's like you said, it's really clear and it's so easy to get distracted by things that aren't bringing you closer to your goal, but that maybe at first glance appear to be. You know what I'm saying? Like the posting on social media. Because it's really, if you spend all your time there, it's just that you're not going to grow your business. I'm sorry.
Even not at all.
Those who love social media, but yeah. So I love that. That's just the way you phrased that really resonated with me. That's awesome.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, and I will say the other thing is that, I for the last 10 years I've worked from home and I've had the entire house to myself. But since quarantine, my husband closed his office and he's been at home. And then my stepdaughter, is at homeschool, so she's here half the week, where historically she was not. And then I got a puppy. So, in a 1,400 square foot apartment, now we have 3 basically adults and a puppy. And so it's like, talk about distraction, right?
Talk about losing your sanity.
Yeah. And I'm, I work in silence, and so it's really been an adjustment to have all the noise around and all the just different moving pieces and parts. So it's really been an adjustment to navigate that. But so far, here we are.
It's so interesting, like, two things I want to talk about there real quick, silence and noise. I didn't realize, I never learned to be alone until I became like a mom. Then I was like, alone time is so key for me. And I always hated being alone. I always was someone that would prefer to just have somebody around. Didn't matter who it was, just someone to talk to. And now it's just like, don't get me wrong, my daughter is fantastic. My husband's okay. That's a joke, everybody. But, like, I just cherish alone time so much. And it can be hard not to have the mom guilt and feel guilty about it, but just, like, being alone and having silence, and I think that's the one thing that I've really learned this past year is just, like, you need silence and you need to cut the noise. And that's going back to my last podcast where I was kind of announcing in, my intentions to lead a silent retreat. I just feel like this theme just keeps reoccurring where I'm just, like, right now loving silence. So again, when you say that totally resonates with me. But then there was one more thing, backing up even further, that I think you and I could have a interesting conversation around is you said that you were trying to be all things to all people. And what I'm seeing a lot in society, and I think a lot with younger entrepreneurs and younger generations, is that they're looking for their job to be all things to them. They're looking for their job to be the thing that makes them the money, but yet the thing that allows them to take vacations, and yet the thing that is not stressful, and the thing that allows them to be totally creative and out on their own and not have to answer to somebody. But, like, you know what I mean? But then the customers, they have to flow, they have to flow in, and it's like, it's just like you can't have that one friend that does everything for you, like different people come into your life to serve different things. I just think it's interesting that people are like, well, they're miserable at their job because there's, like, one part of their job that they maybe don't like doing, but they don't realize that, like, okay, it's just, I don't know, I just feel like, if I look at my father, like, and what he did for many, many years before retiring, it was like he didn't love his job. There was really very few parts of his job that he loved. And yet he did it for many, many years, and it provided for the family and my mom as well. And it's just like he found ways to, like, have enjoyment in life through kids, through hunting, through fishing, through having a cabin and going up there and, just different things. So when you work with your clients, I'm just curious if you're running into the same kind of issue where everyone just, like, is so miserable and hates their job, but I feel like they're holding their job to this expectation that it's supposed to fill all these things in their life, and it doesn't. That was a really long way to ask this very simple question.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll break that down in a couple of different ways. The first thing is, one of the things I'm uncovering with people is that they've been at their job, say, 5, 10, 15 years. And a lot of times people will come to me because they want to relocate states and stay in the same career profession. Sometimes they want to relocate and completely switch professions. Sometimes they actually don't need to leave their job yet. What they really need to do is go in and ask for what they want and be prepared to get it. And so I coach them and teach them sometimes how to do that, or, rewrite their resume to where they're going. And so, yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I'll segue that into our identity versus our values. And so, if you were to ask me, who is Sheila? Well, Sheila is a woman. She's a female. She's a stepmom. She's a wife. She's a daughter, right? I could go on. But when we take a look at our values, now we're getting into more of the depths. And when I had my client do this exercise two weeks ago or so, she literally dropped the phone because she couldn't believe that her values were not aligned with her career. And so then she had this huge breakthrough because communication happens to be one of her top values. And she feels like she's screaming into this black hole every time she goes to work because it seems like no one's on the same page. It's because their values may not be aligned with hers, right? So maybe her coworkers' values is not communication, which is where the conflict comes, right?
Right.
So all that to say, yeah, we have a lot of expectations, spoken or unspoken. And I think, we could apply that to any type of relationship, right? The relationship we have with ourselves, the relationship we have with our spouse, the relationship that we have with our career. It's not going to be this perfect thing, although our mind will have us believe that it's supposed to be, right? Like it's supposed to be linear. Like this person is supposed to check all my boxes or, God forbid, right?
There's a quote, too, that comes to mind. Really sorry to interrupt really quickly, but it doesn't have to hurt very bad before we decide we want to get out. And that's kind of like where I feel like we're at. We're in this kind of hypersensitive, well, I don't like it, so I have to give up on the whole thing. I have to quit the whole thing because there's this one part I don't like, or you kind of just let it. Like I've seen it. And some people just like, well, they don't like one part of their job and it consumes them. And so if they can quit that part of their job, then they'll be happy. Then they'll be, and so then they do that. But you know what? They're still not happy. So then what? Then what can they change about the job? And it's like, okay, and I'm sure you do this too. You uncover the actual root cause. And it's not the job, right? It's usually never the thing they're trying to fix and change and modify. It's something underlying and deeper. And another thing that also just came to my mind that I wanted to share, and then I'll totally let you talk because you're fascinating. But I was reading somewhere about waiting, and it was an encouragement piece about like enjoy the waiting. And I thought, wow, that is so true, because if you look back at kind of the milestones of your life, it's like you're waiting to graduate. And then you're waiting to get a job. And then you're waiting to maybe find a partner. And then you're waiting to get married, or you're waiting to have kids. And then you're waiting for them to grow. And there's all this waiting, and we can get very caught up in like, when this happens, then I'll be happy. Or when this happens, then the anxiety will be gone. Or I can finally, let go or be free or be whatever, right? But we have to learn to enjoy the waiting, because like literally life is just waiting until the next thing, the next phase, right? Like we have to just get present in the waiting, if that makes sense. So yeah, those are a couple things that I just wanted to share as you go along here. I'll let you talk now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. And I think there's this other idea, right? Like, oh, when I get the money, then I'll be happy, or when I get the guy, then I'll be happy. It's really not. It's such a trap. What I'd invite the audience to do, whoever's listening, is to, when I learned this last year, my mind was completely blown. And that is the idea that happiness is 100% my responsibility, right? So it's my responsibility to make myself happy and to be satisfied with whatever that may be. And it's going to look different for everybody, right? But the thing is, I don't have to wait for happiness to land on me, right? And I love that idea, because whose waiting room are you in, right? And so long as you're waiting for something outside of you to make you happy, it's just a cycle, right?
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating, because one of my clients, she actually moved states, and she kept state hopping, and and I told her one day, I said, did you ever realize that like wherever you go, there you are?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And it's like, like you just said, like maybe it's not that, maybe there's a common denominator here, and that thing is called you. Right? But we don't, again, get the tools. So it's not 100% our fault, but it's in the awareness, right? That's where, for me, meditation equals awareness. And so awareness is like, oh, like I don't have to point the finger and project the blame or the unfinished developmental business onto someone else. Like I could actually own that and do the work, right? what does that mean? What does that look like? Oh, I don't want to go through that. That doesn't feel good, right? Now we're talking about emotions. So it's really interesting. But once you get clear, because a lot of my clients will say, like, I didn't even know this was possible. I didn't even know this was available. Of course not, because that's not what we're taught in school, right? That's not what we hear on the news. These aren't things that are, like, I guess, they're available, but you kind of have to do some digging and go on this journey to figuring that out. The other thing you mentioned was, like, for me, one of the key things is just slowing down and savoring those moments, right? Because that's where you find that happiness and that joy, and it's in those really, really fleeting moments. And so it's like I want to hang on to those throughout my day so that I can sort of string them together. And at the end of the day, I can say, you know what, today was a really good day.
For sure. And have that gratitude piece. Because I think it's like, it's even like, I think I've heard of, like, if something good happens or some piece of gratitude comes to you, like, write it down, put it in a jar, and then from time to time pick stuff out of that jar and read what was good that happened and what was great and what was, you know what I'm saying? Like, to kind of to remind you that, like, all is not lost here. But what I wanted to say, too, is I think going back to the job piece is that we spend the majority of our time at our jobs, and so it's easy to demand that job be the thing that create our ultimate happiness, where, like you said, it's about accountability, which I love, 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 because that's another message I think that the world needs to hear. It's just personal responsibility for their health and happiness and well-being. But yeah, so I think it's because we do spend so much time at our job, it is easy to, again, like I said, just to recap, it is easy to demand that the job be the one thing that, you know, is filling all these voids in our life. And I just think that that is, that's not the purpose that a job serves, kind of, right? And it's something that I've never experienced until recently. I've really come to not enjoy my job. So for the first time in like 11 years, I'm in this space of, like, I am not really enjoying X, Y, and Z about my job, right? There's things that I still enjoy very much, but there's parts of it right now, and I just have to remember, like, this is a season, right? And it's just this aspect, and then really think about all the other things that my job has provided for me and given me and allows me to do. So it's not, you know, I'm not going to, like, bail on it yet. So anyways, that's
an interesting point. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I've had to shift that as well. You know, there's been a lot of times in my job, you know, I love my job. I get up every day and I'm so grateful that I get to work from home. I have calls booked on my calendar. I get to connect with amazing women and just hear their stories, right? And just really hold the space for them to be heard and to be understood, right? Which is what we all desire. And I will say, just to kind of out myself on that, it hasn't been, you know, extremely perfect, and I've loved every part of it in the fact that everything was easy. Absolutely not. You know, one of the things I uncovered was, like, I would get rejected a lot. You know, I would get ghosted a lot. I would get a lot of people that wouldn't message me back, wouldn't email me back, wouldn't call me back, lied to me, you know, all the things. I and that was, that right? Can you relate?
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good, right? And so we can really start to take that personal after a while. And I'm happy to say that just, like, doing more of this work and feeling that, it's like there's a quote by Pema Chodron, and she says, "Nothing ever goes away until it teaches you what you need to know."
Right.
And I just love that, because sometimes you're just banging your head against the wall, like, why do I keep doing this? Like, obviously there's got to be a benefit here, right? Like, am I crazy? Like, I'm doing the same things and I'm getting the same results, right? But you know, I didn't give up. You know, I just kept going, and I'm so grateful that I did, because I realized just this year that, like, you know, I can use that rejection or that abandonment wound that I carried for so long. I can now turn that into my superpower, and I can reframe that in a way that's like, you know what, that's not a rejection. It's actually the universe's way of redirecting you, because that's just not a fit for you right now. Yeah. And you're creating the space and leaving the space open for what is for you to come. And just as long as you maintain that energy and that vibration, which is also not easy, right? Like that requires me eating really well, sleeping really well, moving my body, doing all of my wellness practices to stay in that vibration to be able to continue believing that that's my truth.
What I love, too, is like when you discover that you have the power to not necessarily do the rejecting, but to notice when something isn't for you and not chase after it, that is like vibing up super high, right? Because I had somebody contact me almost 2 years ago, and we had a conversation about their business, and I, stressed some points of emphasis that they really needed to focus and work on if things were going to get better. That, I could jump in and do X, Y, Z, but without them doing a little bit of leg work, they were not going to see the results they wanted. They wanted me to send them a proposal. I did. About a week went by. I hadn't heard from them, so I reached out one more time. Did you get a chance to read this? Never heard from them. Almost 2 full years later, just last week, who contacts me? This client, right? And it was like, here's me now thinking, I'd love to have another client right now, especially one in this particular area. I think they would allow for me to really execute some creative and different marketing pieces and just generate different ideas, and it would be super fun. So from a selfish standpoint, kind of like, yes, I want to get my hands on this business, but white people show you who they are the first time, and if you're not going to, if you're going to ghost me for 2 years, I kind of now know, like, no, I'm not going to, I will entertain the thought of taking you on as a client, but bing, bam, boom, here's my response, take it or leave it, right? And once again, they left it. But this time, it wasn't so hard to, like, take that rejection, because it was like I was in this space of, well, it's not abandonment, it's not rejection. It's like it's me saying, I'm moving in this direction, and you're either coming with me or you're not, right? Like, this is where I am right now. These are my fees. This is what I can do for you. And then if you're not there, you're not ready, then we're still not a fit, So, so I think that is the ultimate goal, maybe, for at least for me, is because when you said rejection and then you said abandonment, I'm like, usually that's the underlying issue, is actually abandonment, not rejection for most people. So just wanted to throw that in there, too, that I think that once you can start to recognize when something isn't a fit for you and move away from it quicker and not spend so much time chasing it down, it becomes really just empowering, and then you don't have to deal with those feelings of rejection and abandonment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes alongside with, like, there's a thing called the mother wound and the father wound, and these are a couple of things that I see in my work. And it's not to say that our mother or our father or our caregiver was wrong or whatever, but none of us were accurately seen and heard and paid attention to and all the things, right? Like, it's just not possible, right? So so everybody has sort of a thing that they carry with them, like maybe a trauma that's just an unhealed wound. And it's something to do, with your inner child, and that's a lot of the work that I do, is like getting comfortable speaking your truth, right? And getting comfortable setting those healthy boundaries. And when you can then come from that healed place, you have more of a sense of empowerment, right? To say, like, we're just not a fit, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So where do we go from here? I know things have really picked up for you. This last year has been a year of minimizing distractions, learning, and growth. And what do you see that's on the horizon?
Yeah, well, I'm super excited. I'm forecasting for April, and I've just got a lot of things kind coming to fruition? And gosh, that's a great question. I'm doing a lot of visioning and manifesting right now. I just don't know what's going to happen in the world, so I'm kind of just taking it day by day and being present and savoring the moments and slowing down. But, ideally just I'm here to serve more people and really give them the tools. That's what keeps me high vibe. That's what keeps me in the flow, and that's what I love to do, is just empower people and give them the tools to know that, they're not alone, right? Like somebody else is probably going through the same exact thing that they are, and it's okay
Even
to
though
be
you'll
vulnerable.
never see that on social media.
Right, exactly, right? You're not going to see that on social media,
my social
right?
media jab. What's a podcast without jabbing on social media?
Exactly. Yeah. And, because people put on social media what they want you to see. You can erase it and make it look pretty, right? But let's face it, it's not the reality, right? And of course, I'm not going to show up as a hot mess on social media, but at the same time, that was one of the things that I struggled with as a coach, of this imposter syndrome, right? I'm the coach. I'm supposed to have everything figured out, right? Yeah. No, I'm actually a human being just like you, just like everyone else. And, so it's just, it's kind of just breaking down those barriers and those walls that limit us, that keep us from that greater intimacy and love that we all desire. So I'm just passionate about talking to more people, serving more people, giving them the tools, because here's the thing, when we're doing this deeper inner work, we're not only breaking down the barriers and structures of past generations, obviously present generations, but also the future generations. You had shared that podcast with me yesterday, and I loved just, the guys talking about things that people don't want to talk about, right? And it's breaking down these things, and I think that's another thing that I'm grateful for this last year is yes, with everything that has happened, sometimes things need to break so that they, the light can shine through and we can start to rebuild these things that were really foundationally just cracking and needed to be busted open. And I feel like the truth will always reveal itself. The light will always shine through. And I think that the world is just screaming for that kind of stuff now. And so that's what I'm here to be. And that's the voice that I'm choosing to show up and stand in my truth. Which is not always easy, right? There's always going to be someone who's going to disagree with you, who's not going to be aligned. And I think this time is really calling for us to just go deeper and not just let these 20, 30-year friendships go just because we disagree on something. It really is taking more effort to really, at the end of the day, understand each other, right? And we can come from different opinions, but be kind and be respectful about it. So I think that's the thing with all the, I've always been an advocate of holistic wellness, right? It's not just the food on our plate. It's the physical, it's the mental, it's the emotional, it's the social, it's the spiritual. And I think we've got a really heavy dose of that right now. And these things that need to be talked about and we need more of the tools like this to get the message out there that this is what's available to you, so that we can move forward in new systems and new ways that actually support us and allow us to thrive and be successful.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate that quote, I just love the quote. To stay when even, when it gets a little bit painful, just to stay and be still and to listen versus to want to run and hide and make wrong and point fingers and blame, that's that's what I take away from that. But that's beautiful. So tell everybody one more time where they can find you and how they can connect with you, because I'm sure what you're saying is resonating with a lot of people, and they're going to want to have some, private one-on-one conversations with you. So
yeah, of course.
Get in touch.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so a couple ways you can find me. If you're on Facebook, you can search Sheila Love. That's my Facebook profile. I've got a free group called Self-Love Tools for High-Performing Women. The link's right there. You can click on that below my cover page. You can also book a 2-hour clarity call. It's a complimentary call to you where we really dive deep, and I ask you lots of questions and see if we're a fit for working together. And then if you're on Instagram, you can follow me at my handle. It's at Healthy Life Coach Sheila.
Awesome. And for our listeners, I will link all of that in the episode notes so that you have direct links to that. And don't forget to share this podcast. When you share and tag at Vera Creative, make sure you're following me. You're automatically entered to win free stuff. Free stuff is awesome stuff. So again, Sheila, thanks for joining me a second time and sharing your wisdom and your passion for what it is you do. I really enjoyed our conversation today. It was a little shorter, but hopefully that just leaves people wanting more and to connect more with you. So thanks again.
Thanks so much, Jill.